I'm a 33-year-old female. I went to a convention with two female friends and stayed in the downtown area hotel near the convention center. Catty corner from our hotel was a chain drugstore. It was still light outside and we decided to get some snacks to eat while we were watching Netflix that night. While my friends were looking for candy, I stood back because I wanted some chips and noticed a man next to them. He wasn't looking at the candy, he was watching them. They hadn't noticed, so when they picked their candy, I whispered them to follow me. I picked up the pace, turned quickly down the middle, and down an aisle. I told them there's a creepy guy there, and to stay together. That's when I noticed he's on the other end of the aisle. We kept taking turns down the various aisles, and he's following us, but walking where he's between us and the exit. At this time, we're basically trapped in the back of the store near the pharmacy. The line for the pharmacy was long, but it was full of men, so we got in line and started talking to the men in front of us, hoping that would scare off our stalker. We could still see him in the big globe mirror, one aisle down waiting for us. We waited in that line for 30 minutes to ask for security. The security swept the pharmacy, and the stalker guy had left. We were extra thankful when the security guard offered to walk us back to the front of our hotel. I don't know what intentions that guy had for us, but I'm glad I'll never find out. This happened when I was about 12 or 13, and I had went back to look at the books on the other side of the store by myself while my parents were shopping. When I was there, I noticed this guy that was about 5 feet away from me. I didn't really pay much attention to him and just went to the other side of the shelf. But then he also went to the other side when I did. I was a little uncomfortable, but I thought it was just a coincidence, so I went back to the other side. Again, when I went to the other side, so did he. He started getting closer and closer to me, making me a little more freaked out, and he still followed me every time I would go to the other side. At this point, we're just circling the shelves, so when he was still walking to the other side, I went to the DVD section that was next to the shelf. I saw him look around, and then a woman, who I assumed was his wife, appeared next to him, and he whispered something to her, and they both started looking around. I was kind of shaking because I knew that they were looking for me. Fortunately, my parents came just in time, and when we were leaving I saw them again, glaring at me. This happened 2 days ago. I'm a 22-year-old female. I live in an apartment in a large downtown area right next to my university. So I was pulling into the parking lot of the CVS near my apartment, and I noticed a woman standing at one of the other cars near mine, talking to a man inside. When I got out, they started walking in, and the woman tried to flag me down and talk to me. I just ignored her and walked into the store. The man who was in the car got out and followed me in. He followed me through several aisles before stopping me to ask if I wanted to be on his OnlyFans and make porn videos for him. I told him that I wasn't interested multiple times, but he continues to ask me questions about myself, my name, where I work, live, and if I have an OnlyFans. He started to describe sexual acts he wanted to do with me for his OF. I was so scared in the moment and wasn't sure what else to do. But eventually, after I turned down his offer enough times, he walked away and left the store without buying anything. What was really weird is that he was wearing an obviously fake lab coat and said he was in town for a pharmacist convention. I don't know. When I got to the register to check out, I noticed an employee looking out the window, and one of them told the other to call the police if they saw that woman again. When I got to my car, the man was still sitting in his car right next to mine. Luckily, I don't think he was able to follow me out due to the busy area I was in. In retrospect, I think this guy might have been a human trafficker looking for easy targets. I just hope no one else was bothered by him and decided to go anywhere with him. Stay vigilant, ladies. Edit. I did make a report to my local police in case anyone else had an encounter with this guy. Also, I do carry mace. So this happened about a year ago, and I still don't return to the store without my husband. So last July, I took my then 4 and 6-year-old sons to Target to shop for back to school. Since having kids and hearing all these horror stories, I'm very observant of my surroundings when I'm out. Anyways, while in Target, like most women, I looked through all the sections. When in the women's clothing, I noticed 2 older men close by that kept looking over our way. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, so I kept going on with my business, but keeping my boys super close. We go to the baby section, then pop-ups, toys, makeup, and the same thing. I was really feeling uneasy because they seemed to be everywhere we were, and they never had a cart. One guy was holding one little thing. I go to check out and wait for a big group of nurses leaving Starbucks to walk out with. I threw my boys in the car without buckling them and locked the doors. As soon as I look up, the 2 guys walk out empty-handed, looking around. I didn't think they saw me, so I started to leave. When I looked in the rearview mirror and saw them behind me in a truck, I stopped right there, turned around, and took a photo of them, making sure that they could see me. They turn like they're going back to the store and park a couple stores down where they can no longer see me. And I call the cops. While on the phone with them, in a full-blown panic attack, I watch one of the guys change his shirt and go back inside. I waited until the police got there so I could make sure that they got and had the right guys. I don't know what their plan was for that day, but my mama gut told me that it wasn't anything good. I'm so thankful that my babies and I are okay. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying I'm posting this just because I want to vent about what happened yesterday, because I'm still freaked out. So this all started because my mom needed a few things from Walmart, and I was going there anyways, so I decided to save her the trouble and get them for her. I get what I need and check out. I walk outside and realize I parked on the other side of the store, so I started walking. I had this uneasy feeling, but I pushed it away by saying it was just my social anxiety kicking in. So I get to the row I'm parked in, and I'm closing in on my car when I notice these 2 guys walking behind me. I thought nothing of it because Walmart was packed when I went in, so I just ignored them until I realized that they weren't stopping. They were following me all the way back to my car. To put it in perspective, I parked on the way end, away from everyone else, so I wouldn't get my car door smacked in. They stopped a few feet from my spot beside me and watched me get in my car. They had to be about late 20s, early 30s. They stood there for a minute, but walked away when they saw me pull my phone out. I called my dad, shaking and explaining everything to him. He stayed on the phone with me until I calmed down enough to drive home. You might be saying, well, that's not that bad, but it gets worse. I'm still on the phone with my dad, trying to calm down when I noticed they came back, but this time they're in their car. They slowly drove by my car, and the one in the passenger seat looks at me with a creepy smile and waves at me in a flirty way, and then they drove away. Let's just say I didn't leave that parking lot for a long time. Side note, I was so shaken up, I forgot to pay attention to the road and almost crashed into a car that was speeding in the parking lot. Also, I know the men knew I was only 16 to 18 years old because I have a school parking lot pass on my rearview mirror. I was about 12. Me and my mom had gone to town 45 minutes out to do some shopping with some of her friends. I had a corn snake at the time, so I asked her if I could walk around the pet store, one door down from the mini supermarket she was shopping in, to compare prices of frozen mice with our local seller. She said sure, just to be back as soon as I was done. The pet store had been there as long as I can remember. It had a very warehouse feel about it and was poorly lit by dim fluorescent lights too far above the ground. Before checking out the mice, I just wanted to check around the rest of the store, being the curious 12-year-old I was. As I was roaming the aisles, I noticed him. He was in every aisle I strolled down. Bald, middle age, a bit tubby, wearing dark plumber overalls over a white shirt. It was summer and it was hot. I remember thinking, why on earth would you come into a non-air conditioning building like that? He carried a basket, but there's nothing in it. He slowly stalked me down the aisles. I noticed his basket wasn't getting any fuller. I started walking faster, taking random turns down different aisles to see if I was just being paranoid, but he was always 10 to 15 feet behind me. At some point, I finally thought I lost him. I power walked out of the pet store, and as soon as I cleared the doors, I sprinted down the street to the mini supermarket that my mom was in. She hadn't even made it down the second aisle completely. I caught up to her, immediately stripped off my bright pink hoodie and slung it in the cart, as well as ripped out the hair ties in my hair. I was smart for doing that because when I looked back at the door, he was standing there, still carrying the basket from the pet store and scanning the store for any sight of a 12-year-old girl in a bright pink hoodie and ponytail. When we left, I saw you in your van as you drove away, a plain white van, like something out of a true crime documentary or horror film. I think about him sometimes, and how if you would have caught me before I got to the supermarket on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, what horrors could have been waiting for me in the back of his van. Guy in overalls who followed me out of the pet store without putting down his basket. Even after 10 years, let's not ever meet again. This happened almost 10 years ago when I was 18. I wanted to go pick up some groceries at our local Walmart. It was around 11 at night and I just got off work. I usually have no problem going anywhere by myself, but on this night, my inner self was telling me to invite a friend to tag along. I am roughly 5 feet tall, female, 105 pounds, but I don't get spooked too easily and always carry pepper spray with me. Anyways, back to the story. I call my friend and ask if she'll accompany me, and I go to pick her up. We walk into the produce side of Walmart, and almost right away I notice this man staring at us very intently. He was around 5'5", kinda heavy, had a Hawaiian shirt on, and looked of Hawaiian descent. So we're over by the fresh produce, and I'm keeping an eye on him as he pretends to be looking at bread, but clearly keeps putting things back. I turn my back for a second to grab something. Then I hear a man's voice ask, "Hey, do you guys know of anywhere I can get food this late?" For more background information, I live in a city of about 50,000 people. Right across from this Walmart was Applebee's, which stays open rather late, a McDonald's a quarter mile up the road, and other various places to get food. Plus, we're in the middle of Walmart, duh. So I don't beat around the bush and flatly tell him that there's a couple restaurants around where we were. He then asked, "Well, what's fun to do around here?" It's late at night, so nothing really to do except maybe go to Applebee's or a local bar. I tell him Applebee's is open and we have bars downtown, but that's all I'm aware of. He proceeds to ask what we were doing when we leave, and I tell him we have to leave now. He apologizes and said he didn't mean to be creepy. We walk away and are looking in the frozen aisle when I spot him on the opposite side walking by. I tell my friend I've had a bad feeling about him since we walked in and wanted to test out if he was following us. We walked a few aisles and sure enough, he was on the other end nonchalantly walking by, pretending not to see us. I backtrack a couple aisles to get something and he walks up, pretending to look at things. I finally ask him if I can help him with something. I think this threw him off guard by being so direct because he stutters and asks what aisle the milk is on or something. I tell him and we leave to check out. Well, wouldn't you know it, he's in the checkout right next to us with a pack of gum, no milk, or whatever else he was looking at. He finishes first and watches us leave the store. Me thinking he's gone by now, tells my friend, let's just run to the car. So we run out to the car, look around to make sure we didn't see him. Now, here's the real creepy part. As I'm leaving the parking lot, we see him sitting on the trunk of his car, watching people leave Walmart. I drove by to get his license plate number. He sees us and rushes into his car. I sped off as quickly as I could, so he can't see where I went. I then called the cops and tell them about what just happened, and relayed the license plate number to them. So creepy Hawaiian shirt guy, who was supposedly looking for places to eat while in the middle of Walmart, please let's never meet again. I was in Walmart earlier this evening with my two daughters, one elementary school aged and the other middle school. We looked around for school supplies for a minute and then rounded the corner to see the Halloween candy on display. As we turned the corner, a slightly older guy came really close to us, like he was in a hurry and almost hit our cart. He didn't have a cart or any items. I said, "Oh, excuse me," and then stopped in front of the candy to let my youngest ask a bunch of questions about the candy pumpkins. The man stopped quickly and started rummaging around the candies right next to my daughter. He was listening to our conversation and reacted strangely when my daughter said that she wanted to take a picture of the candy. He was twitchy and caught my eye and looked away quickly. We moved on to the women's PJ section to look around for a few minutes, and I noticed the same man pass by really close again. He was turning to the right towards the shoes with a big bag of candy cradled in his arms. My girls went across the aisle to the boys' clothing section while I finished deciding. And when I was catching up to them a couple minutes later, the guy was wandering through the boys' clothes towards my daughter. He paused and looked confused, but still like he was in a rush, and watched me discuss sizes with my youngest. This is when I started thinking something was off with this dude. I mentioned him to my older daughter, and then we moved through the partition into the girls' clothes. I didn't see him again for a few minutes, and figured it was nothing. But then he came into the section and was acting like he was trying to pick out a justice shirt. He still had the big bag of candy that he kept adjusting his grip on. I kept seeing him take quick peeks at my girls, but every time he saw me watching him, he pretended to be occupied in his shopping. I told my oldest I thought he was following us, and she said that she noticed the same thing. I made my youngest get in the cart so I could keep them both close. They both tend to wander a bit. The guy then walked out of the girls' section, passing close behind me, but he looped around the partition back into the boys' section and stopped at the opening on the other side, but still straight in the line of sight. He caught my eye again and twitched, then pulled out his phone, texted something, and walked away. By this time, I was on high alert and possibly quite paranoid. I looked around and saw two slightly older men standing around. One was in electronics, kind of looking at a half-empty display of something. But I swear he glanced at me several times, even though there were 3 or 4 racks of clothes and a hallway with occasional people in between. The third guy had wandered into the girls' section and was apparently considering buying a justice shirt too. Every time he saw me notice him watching us, he would wander down to the baby aisles, but keep coming back after a couple minutes. I realize now, looking back, that if I suspected something bad, I should have just gotten my girls out of there. Clothes shopping for a picky preteen isn't fun, and I wanted to get it done and over with. On top of that, I kept second-guessing myself that the other 2 guys were just a coincidence. I kept my girls really close to me after we moved to the women's section, and I didn't see any of them again, and I stopped feeling creeped out, like we were being watched. Now, it's the middle of the night, and I'm pretty freaked out wondering what could have happened if I didn't notice the first guy, and continue to let my girls wander around. Should I report anything? I can't really imagine anything would be done just because I noticed some guy watching my daughters in Walmart. So a couple days ago, I was headed into the grocery store and waited for a car to pass so I could cross. Well, he was driving very slowly. I saw he had a digital camera in his hand, and he snapped a picture of me. The flash went off. The windows were down and everything, like he's fully prepared to do this, and he's probably done it many times before. I very audibly said, "What the fuck?" And by the time I realized what had just happened, he had driven away. It sufficiently freaked me out to the point where I asked all my female friends if they've ever experienced anything like that before. Of course, all of them had a different but equally creepy encounter with a man, because why wouldn't they? I feel like a lot of women are constantly put into uncomfortable situations because a lot of men just can't act like women are actual human beings. I'll be staying away from that store for a while. Maybe not creepy, I don't know. I'm a 23-year-old female. A few years ago when I was 18, I was going grocery shopping. As I was walking down the aisles, I noticed this older guy, maybe in his late 50s, early 60s, who seemed to be following me. Every aisle I went down, he was at the other end staring at me. I'm a bit paranoid because I'm 5'3" and 95 pounds, and know that I would have a hard time fighting someone off if I needed to. I kept my eye on him, and when I went to check out, he was right behind me. I stupidly at the time didn't ask someone to walk me out to my car because I carry tons of self-defense stuff like pepper spray, screamers, window breakers, and seatbelt cutters. I was meek and didn't want to bother the busy workers. I booked it to my car and saw him following me. I locked my doors and sped out of the parking lot. I'm thankful I checked my back mirrors because he was still following me. At this point, I kept circling the same block over and over. After like 5 minutes of doing this, he finally got the point that I was onto him and would keep circling the blocks until he stopped. He drove away. I circled a few more times and then just drove to my friend's house because I was scared that he was still out there and would find out where I lived. What's also scary is a similar thing happened the next time I was shopping. It wasn't the same guy, but it was still just unnerving. I told my mom and she gave me the rules of having someone walk me to my car, and if someone's following me, to pull into a police station. I usually don't bother to post anything on Reddit, but I figured typing out this situation might make me feel better. So I am 23 years old, female, and live on my own. I just moved out to this area for school and went to my local Walmart to gather supplies for cleaning. As I walked in, I take note of an older man near the entrance that I briefly made eye contact with and nodded at, and just kept walking. I was looking at folders for a bit and then made my way back towards the electronics section at the back of the store to look for a charger. I was making my way through the aisles on the way down, looking at the fall decorations. Lots of them were geared towards kids, so I just glanced at them quickly and turned around to leave. The same man was there and was holding and inspecting some paper plates with childish Halloween designs on them for kids. I didn't even hear him walk into the aisle. I thought that was a little strange but brushed it off, thinking he had grandkids. I left and made my way into the electronics section where they kept the chargers behind locked glass doors. I'm there for about 7 minutes and the same man shows up, and I see the reflection of him in the glass that he's checking out my ass as he walks by. At this point, I was pretty far away from where I last saw him. I brushed it off because I'm used to men making quick glances like that in public, and left it at that. He was looking at the display behind me at the other side, goes and leaves, and then this is where it gets creepy. He stands right behind me and starts aggressively eyeing me up and down while licking his lips, paying particular attention to my backside and my legs. He's basically undressing me with his eyes. At that point, he was giving off massive creep vibes, and I started shaking with adrenaline. I was alone in the aisle with him. I was afraid that he would try to grab me. I stayed calm, despite my throat feeling like it had a ball in it, and waited for him to leave. He does. Then I go down a random aisle near the electronics, but in the general part of the store, and waited there for a few minutes standing there to see if he would show up. I noticed that there were two men behind the electronics counter and wanted to stay near them if anything went wrong. I wanted to confirm if he was following me or not. Sure enough, 5 minutes later there he was. I caught him quite literally speed walking down the main walkway, looking down each aisle as if frantically looking for me. He stops dead, saw me notice him, and then promptly scurried off. I went back into the electronics section and informed them that I was being followed and was not comfortable and asked if there was security. They didn't have any, just theft prevention, and offered to check me out there or accompany me to finish shopping. They were very kind, and I took them up on their offer to get my cleaning supplies nearby. As we turned together, the same guy was standing further away staring. He literally just increased the radius he was using to follow me and watching me from the front of the registers now. I get my stuff, check out, and then weave all through the clothing section to leave at a different section than the one I originally entered from and originally saw him. I didn't see him the whole time I did this. Got to my car. I promptly drove to my new place, but stopped halfway in a random neighborhood. I pulled over and pretended that it was my house to see if anyone was following me. I did not want this guy finding out where I lived. I drove home when I didn't see anyone. I may be overreacting, but this is a new area to me, and I've never had someone be quite that creepy and persistent in following me. I've done things on my own plenty of times and never had an issue. This all happened in the middle of the day at like 3 p.m. I was wearing loose clothes and just wanted to make a quick trip in and out. I have no idea what could have happened if I didn't notice or what his intentions might have been. I can't imagine that they were good. Maybe he would have followed me to my new place. Who knows? Either way, this whole encounter was scary. He had no clue I saw his reflection and the nasty expression on his face. Just stay aware, guys, and watch yourself. Two years ago, I lived near a big city while taking care of my great-grandma. One day, me and my mom decided to get some groceries, but we did not have a car, so we had to walk. We were almost there when I heard my first name being shouted. I ignored it at first, thinking I was hearing things. But then this random lady that looked pretty disheveled and scared ran up to me, grabbing my arm, and kept repeating my name. My name is not a common name, and everyone I know calls me by a completely unrelated name, so there's no way that she overheard someone else saying it. She looked so frightened, and I'll never be able to get her face out of my mind. She was holding onto my arms with a really tight grip, and I remember being surprised because she was very skinny and frail looking. Her grip left bruises on my arms for a while. My mom ended up grabbing my arm and dragging me away. She was freaked out too, but didn't say anything. She just kept praying. When I got home, she prayed a lot and blessed me. I was not scared of the lady, just more confused. How did she know my name? Why did she look so scared?